Welcome to What's Brewing with IAT Insurance Group, where episode after episode we cover the latest marketplace trends with subject matter experts who are fueling our mission to provide insurance answers together. Grab your cup and let's settle in.
Hi, I'm Nicole Kirby, and welcome to What's Brewing. I'm the AVP of Marketing and Analytics for the Commercial Transportation Business Unit at IAT. I'm joined by my friends and colleagues, Nick Martin and Jaden Tareta, who are part of our LossControl group here at IAT. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, Nicole. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes, and thank you for joining us even though you're on the road today.
You bet.
So this is kind of random, but so this summer I hit the road with my family of our annual vacation to Colorado. So Kansas to Colorado. And of course, driving across I-70, you stop at numerous truck stops. And I have noticed the lots have been particularly full over the many of the ones that we visited. And at one point I did see some trucks that were parked, kind of along the on-off ramps, which I thought was kind of odd. And I know, Nick, last year you wrote one of your blogs touching on the lack of safe tractor trailer parking. And here we are almost a year later, and it seems the lack of parking for truckers continues to still be a challenge. Can you provide some insight on the parking crisis, how we got here, and why the challenge still continues to exist?
I think you said a key thing there, Nicole. It's a challenge and it's a critical situation, and it has been for some time. And to mention drivers having to park on exit and on ramps is an accident waiting to happen. But unfortunately, because of the lack of parking, that's what they're having to do. I think 68 or 70% of drivers will say that at some point in time they have parked on an exit or an on-ramp, knowing that it was illegal, but they were out of hours and just needed an opportunity to get some rest and let their hours pick back up. How does it get fixed? That's the ultimate question. It takes multiple arms, it takes multiple levels of government as well as private business to come together and to figure out what's the best way to reduce the critical parking situation and to improve the drivers' lives out on the road. It takes about 12% of a driver's pay each year, or about $5,500, just looking for parking. Not to mention the aggravation, not to mention the stress and the accidents that happen. So fortunately, there are a lot of things that are in the works, but it's going to take some additional time for parking to get better. And I think it's always going to be a problem, unfortunately, because of the size of tractor trailers. You're looking at a 53-foot trailer. With the tractor, you're looking at about 72 feet of space that you're having to take up. And if you put that into comparison, I think that's like 5 or 6 cars that you're trying to park into one spot. So definitely an opportunity to improve. And there is work that's being done across the board, whether it be federal, state, regional situation, as well as private stakeholders, to include truck stops, businesses, trucking industries, and everybody's coming together to try and fix this issue.
What are some measures that trucking companies can take to ensure their drivers have access to safe and legal parking, especially since you mentioned, running out of hours? I mean, how do they time that so that situation doesn't happen?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, these days with electronic logins, that's an easier opportunity, especially from a dispatch standpoint. So if you take a look at dispatching or planning, let's talk about planning first. So as you're planning the load, you're looking from point A to point B. If it's 600, 700, 800 miles, that driver's going to have to take a rest stop at some point in time for his hours to catch back up, even if it's not that length of haul, even if it's not 500 to 800 miles. Let's say it's a 250 mile load, but that driver's just coming off of 500 miles today and needs to reload. He's going to have to take a break before he gets to that 250 miles. So something that companies can do is pay more attention to the route planning. Instead of just pulling that freight into the dispatch board. Let's do that, but let's also look at the route. Which route is the driver going to take, or what's the best route for the driver to take? And in that route, are there rest areas, whether they be paid rest areas for parking or an actual rest area on the side of the road that the driver would be able to get into? Making sure that as dispatchers and company representatives, we know how many hours that driver has available to work. Knowing that ahead of time, and especially with electronic logs, they can see how many hours the driver has left to work, if they need to take a 30-minute break during the day. So understanding the hours of service that each individual driver has before dispatching them. And then again, securing or identifying parking locations for the driver along the traffic lane. And then there's other tools that, in combination with the driver and dispatch or the company, that can help the drivers find secure parking. So understanding and using truck parking information systems. Currently, right now, Nicole, there are 8 states that display open parking spots in the rest areas along major thoroughfares in Midwestern states mostly. And they have sensors in the rest area. And that sensor is telling the display out on the roadway that there's X number of parking spots available, or no parking spots available, which is often the case at 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night. There's also several apps. There's some in-cab navigations, and a lot of states have 511 travel websites to where you can go on and take a look at not just parking locations, but travel conditions, lane conditions.
So for some of those areas where the rest areas where there is availability to park, is there a time restriction on how long, a trucker can be parked there?
From a rest area standpoint, I don't believe so. I think after a while, they probably will monitor that. And if needed, maybe take a look at the truck and see if anything is going on that somebody needs to take care of it. From a private standpoint, there are paid parking available, and you pay for 24 hours, you pay for 6 hours, things along those lines that may cause you to, hey, you're only here for a certain amount of time, and then you got to get back on the road.
Great. So I know you talked about the dispatch being part of the education with the driver, but is there any specific education for the drivers that, play a role in mitigating risk associated with the truck parking crisis, or even certain ways to navigate through the parking lot since it is so congested?
Yeah, so it goes hand in hand. What hours he has, granted, we have it on the electronic logs, but if he's not feeling well or under the weather, he knows that, hey, I'm not going to get that far tonight. I'm still going to have time to make my delivery, so I want to stop about 2 hours before that. So they can work together, use those resources that are available to them, and then knowledge is power, Nicole. I mean, understanding that parking is, as far as concern for drivers, parking is tied with compensation for the number one concern for driver. Understanding that and using the resource to us through electronics, through the roadside signs, and just being aware that, yes, it's going to be a problem, but there are some opportunities to make it a little bit easier for us. And then certainly practicing. Practice makes perfect. So companies as well as drivers taking the opportunity to practice backing as well as going forward.
Are there any tips related to backing that you could share?
Jaden, do you have some information on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the first and probably the most commonly used tip is to get out and look. If you don't know what's behind you and there's something that's hiding that's outside the vision of your mirrors, it's pretty simple. Get out and look and see what's there, right? Before you take chances and get towards that dock door and ultimately find out that there's something in between you and that dock door. You'll never know until you get out and take a look.
This has been really good information. So Jaden, question for you. How can truck drivers be better informed? I know Nick talked about it, especially with dispatching and coordinating with the driver, but how about, available parking spots in real time? Is there any sort of existing program or app that can assist the driver or even the dispatch with helping them find a spot, especially if certain things pop up unexpectedly?
Certainly. I think that this is becoming a more and more competitive marketplace as the crisis is becoming more widespread, right? And we're seeing many drivers having issues with finding parking. So now there's even competition amongst the parking services. But one parking service that I've done a fair amount of research on and seems to be doing a great job at providing some solutions to these drivers is truckparkingclub.com. And there's really a few services that are offered here. One of the nicest things is that when you log into the website, or I should just say open the website, there's no requirement to make a payment or join a subscription or even create a login. You can immediately go to the website and see a map of locations along your route. So you can zoom into a specific state, see which way you're heading, and see what might be along that way. So immediately from there, you'll also be able to see, as Nick kind of talked about the truck parking information management systems, you'll actually be able to see the real-time amount of spaces available in a lot. So this is the same information that would essentially be displayed on those electronic message boards alongside the highway and the heavy traffic roads. But the nice thing here is that the driver doesn't have to be looking at that sign. They can have their dispatch take a look online at the website for them. They can take a look on a previous stop of theirs to see kind of what the trends are looking like in those areas that day. The nice thing as well is that businesses that are providing truck parking are able to implement this service, so they can go ahead and install the information management systems. However, one of the issues is that just because there's free parking spots available doesn't necessarily mean they won't be taken by the time the drivers arrive. One of the most important things is peace of mind and reducing stress. These same websites allow the truckers to find and book parking immediately. That will guarantee them a reservation for as long as they might need. There's the option to park for a day, a week, or a month. Frequently, the pricing is going to incentivize longer stays, but it's also nice that it provides information about the location, some of the on-site amenities, the costs, as well as feedback from other truckers who have parked there. Last thing to add here with truckparkingclub.com is the monetization for landowners who have vacant properties. So think about an industrial yard, a tow truck company, a truck repair shop, or a warehouse that has open spaces available. Part of the issue for those business owners becomes making those spaces available to truckers and getting them filled. So services like truckparkingclub.com bridge the gap between trucks in need of spaces and spaces that won't be filled because drivers aren't knowledgeable that they're there and available for them.
That's great. It's good that they have some options, especially, extending it more to people who do have space and bridging that gap between business owners that have the space and then also truckers and giving them someplace safe to park, knowing that they have that availability. Well, thank you for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it. And make sure that you always thank your trucker when you see one, because they work hard, especially getting us all the stuff that we need and touch every day. It's amazing how much they impact our everyday lives. And thank you for listening to What's Brewing, and we'll see you next time.
Providing insurance answers together is what we do best. Thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of What's Brewing. Until next time.